Hey everybody, happy Saturday night. Today is May 31st, 2025. This is Across the Pitch. Dave Miller, right on time, sir, just joined us as we were introducing the show. The Philadelphia Union traveled to FC Dallas tonight for their final game in this very long stretch of games in May, and we end up with a 0-0 draw, up a man for about, I would say, like about 60-70% of the match. Uh, I got mixed feelings on this one, Dave. But first of all, sir, how are you doing tonight? And kind of give me your thoughts on tonight's match.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I mean, allergies are kicking my ass at the moment, but the match. How did they not score?
Yep.
That was the only thing I'd take away from the match. I mean, even in the first half, it was 11 versus 11. I said in the group chat to you and Jose, like they have to score for one of these free kicks. Every like set piece they put in the box, they were winning it every single time. Like even Bedoya was somehow getting using his pace to get in behind to get on the end of a free kick, and it nearly paid off. Like
Yep.
it was just one of those evenings or nights when the ball just was never going to go in the back of the net, unfortunately. But I think there was plenty of positives to take with the performance. I think it's just a frustrating one where you look back at it and say it is unfortunately 2 points lost instead of a point gained because against 10 men they really should have put the game away. And I think there was a couple of moments in the early stages of the first half where I think again I said in the chat if they score early in the second half at the start of the second half that will completely throw out FC Dallas's game plan out the window, which would probably be just to sit in deep and frustrate them, which they did, and hopefully we'd open up the game and make it easier for Philadelphia. But yeah, it just wasn't meant to be.
So it's one of those. Again, it's one of those things I'm a little bit torn on because it has been such a hectic month, and But when you're up a man, and I don't want to sound so like Negadelphia here in terms of like, well, we're up a man, we're automatically going to blow this. As soon as they went up a man, I was like, oh boy, like, are we going to see what we've seen year after year where they just simply cannot find a way to score a goal when they have that advantage? And as you said, it just felt like, okay, the minutes passed, we still didn't score. Damiani missed another chance. Here we go again. It just felt like it was getting closer and closer to the final whistle, and it just seemed more and more obvious that we weren't going to score a goal tonight. And it was rather frustrating. Let's bring in some comments here right now, and we'll get to the statistics as well. I do want to touch on that as well. Uh, Valerie and Joe join us tonight. Hello, guys. How you doing tonight? Valerie says another draw that feels like a loss, not quite as gut wrenching as Columbus and Miami, but poopy nonetheless. I love the words, the terminology we got going on tonight. Joe says, I mean, I was hoping for the draw tonight, which I got. Once I saw FC Cincinnati lost on my iPad and then Dallas go down 10 men, I wanted to push for more than 3 points. Valerie says, up the Jills. Love that. Love getting Gillingham on the show whenever we can. But let's talk about Damiani. T Mac says Damiani is brutal. I can't believe he is a club record signing. So let's talk about Damiani tonight. I think it was in the very final portions of this match. He misses a clear shot at net. He
Yeah,
has had a couple opportunities over the last few matches over the course of the season where he just simply doesn't seem to find the back of the net. I would love to know your thoughts on Bruno. Is this is just a bad run of form from him? What is your opinion? Or maybe are the fans being a little too harsh on Bruno Damiani?
I think it's just quite unfortunate that he's come at a time where you lose Carranza and then coming into the season, all the hype and all the talk was, where's this big money signing? Where's this guy that is going to come in and score like another 15 goals alongside what Brebo and McKenna are going to produce?
Mm-hmm.
But again, he's still a young striker. I think he's like 22, 23 years old, and I mean, he's played like I think before this year, he's played I think about 60, 70 games in his professional career.
Yeah, he's 23, by the way. Just like
He's played like 70 games in his professional career. He's still a young striker. Like it's obviously gonna be growing pains, but like I'd be more concerned if he was not having the opportunities or getting in the position to, you know, have the opportunities. Does that makes sense? At least he knows where he needs to be in the box to actually be able to get the chances away. It's just a matter of him actually you know hitting the back of the net. And whether it's just a
yep.
case of he needs to get a couple of chances in the game or two and just take all the chances he gets in a couple of game spell just to kick on, or whether it is just a case of a confidence thing where he just needs
Yeah.
again to score again and just hopefully you know again kick on. But unless he's a streaky striker, we don't know. But at the end of the day, he's young, and but yeah, I think the best, more important thing for me is that he's actually in the position. He's actually, you know, creating, actually having these opportunities as opposed to being completely anonymous in the game and just an afterthought. That makes sense.
Wait, what did I just say? I said Damiani is 23, right? I said. It's so funny. Chris Donovan is just a year older than Bruno Damiani, which is something you can't think of because Bruno's been around for so long. It's hard to kind of fathom that he's actually older than Bruno is. But tonight's statistic, let's kind of go through that real quick, and we're also going to go through the lineup because I think the lineup's worth talking about tonight. And I think it actually also plays in fact into the result tonight. So the Philadelphia Union had a 68% possession for tonight. They had one shot on goal, but 23 shots total, which is what Valerie mentions here. 23 shots total, one shot on target. They had 11 corner kicks and only two saves needed from Mr. Andrew Rick. Tonight's lineup, we had a bit of a mix up as we kind of were alluding to just now. Andrew Rick and net, we had Harold, Macania, Wagner, and Westfield in the back four. Jesus Bueno sees a start again. Stanley Jean Jacques, Ben Bender, Alejandro Bedoya, Chris Donovan, Michael Ua. Dave, I know we've had a lot of rotation lately, a lot of matches. Did you have any concerns with this lineup coming into this match? Any thoughts on that starting 11 coming into tonight?
I was a bit surprised with the midfield. You know, starting Ben Bender away in this sort of circumstance. Bedoya. To be fair, I thought Bedoya was. I thought Bedoya was solid tonight. Gave a good effort. Was a solid performance. He worked hard.
Yeah.
But I think that's all you need for a player, Ali Bedoya, in this at this stage of his career. If he's, if he works hard, you know, he's sort of a box to box. If he can be the box to box player that we know he can be, even at this age, still, he provides solid defensive cover, whatever. Like that's fine by me. Like I don't need Ali Bedoya to be a contributor, scoring 7, 8 goals a season, and at this stage of his career, as long as he can put in a shift every week, I didn't mind that. Ben Bender did okay. I thought he grew into the game. There was a couple of moments in the first half, especially where I thought he sort of like pulled out or didn't fully commit to a couple of like challenges where
Mhm.
I think there was one that stuck out where it looked like he was going to get to the ball first, where I think it would have potentially set up a 3 or 4 and 4 for the Union, intercepting the ball just inside the Dallas half, but it sort of seemed to pull out in the final second, which allowed the Dallas defender to come from behind and pip the ball away from him. But yeah, I think it's interesting that the rotation's been so heavy. I mean, obviously, I know
Yeah.
the backlog of fixtures has been quite it's been very strenuous. But I mean, a quick shout out to Jesus Bueno is obviously
Yeah.
again another start for him tonight, and I'm glad to see him get a run of games after really being left out in sort of the lurch the last 18 months. I mean, it's quite nice to see a player that we all know what he can do, be given the opportunity to actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think with Ben Bender, and we saw this with Gazdag when he first joined the team. We've seen this with players before when they first joined the team. It takes time to get it, acclimated to the new system, the new players, the chemistry there. I was very supportive with having Ben play all 90 minutes tonight. Whether it's for a good result, a bad result, I think when in terms of what you can find from this roster and what you can learn from these players, I think it's important to give them time. Julian and I on the previous episode talked about Neil Pierre. Like, are we going to see him play? Are we going to see him get some exposure? Bueno's getting more minutes. I think it's important for us to see what Bender has to offer,
Oh yeah,
even if maybe some people have mentioned on Twitter, like, hey, let's get Bender off, let's get Sullivan on there or Vasilov, whatever. I understand that. I don't blame you guys for thinking that, and I was personally okay with if he did come out. But if you're looking at it from the long term perspective, I don't mind seeing what Bender can do over a 90-minute match. I don't mind seeing what Bender can do when they are up a man. Can he create something? Can he be that spark? Where after a while, it just seemed like, as you said, kind of at the beginning of the show, it seemed like they just weren't going to score. They just were kind of like, okay, let's see if we can get lucky and figure it out. So we'll see. I really was curious to see if Bender could kind of be that man that steps up. T Mac says here, the result, given our heavy rotated lineup, is acceptable. It becomes harder to accept when you're up a man for 55 minutes, and since he loses against a terrible DC team. And we'll go through the standings tonight. I think there's a couple of matches that you're still finishing up as well. Colin says, no more Ua hate. Rather have had him on half the attempts that Bruno took. I'm going to bring up the schedule for tonight real quick before we kind of talk about Michael Ua. So we had Charlotte beat Toronto 2-0. Chicago beat Orlando 3-1. The Red Bulls beat Atlanta 2-0. But Miami beats Columbus 5-1. Absolutely just smacks them around. And then another team from Ohio, Cincinnati, loses 2-1 against DC United. So if you're looking at the table, you have Cincinnati right behind us at I believe I think if the ESPN has updated it correctly right now. I'm trying to see here. It says 34 points for the Union, 30 points for Cincinnati. But Columbus and Cincinnati obviously in the top 4 or 5 of the Eastern Conference. To see them lose tonight, and as I see the scoreboard entering tonight's match, you're thinking, okay, the Union have a chance here to not only keep their lead but increase their lead
Yeah.
up to 6 points, and they just blow it. Are you disappointed in that regard that we seem to kind of let that opportunity slip through our grasp, or are you just kind of hoping that we just got a point out of tonight and are
Uh,
okay with the overall result?
I think when you see that sort of team at the start of the game, you think, I mean, yeah, they get a point. I mean, again, it's solid enough. I mean, I think especially the fact they went to Toronto on a short week and came away with the win there. I think you probably look at tonight and think, okay, if they come away with a result, it's been a good week. 4 points on a very long road trip. You've essentially gone from the peak point of North America, the teams in the MLS,
Yeah,
all the way down south to Texas. You look at it, and go, that's all that traveling. It's a solid result. But I think sadly with the circumstances at play, with the red card and having a whole second half to um, try and find that goal. Again, it feels like it's 2 points lost, but I think I don't know if you guys would agree. I think if you just said at the start of on Tuesday afternoon that the Union will come away with 4 points from these two games, you'd probably be laughing. But now, I think it's perhaps a testament to how good they have been this year. And again, they've blown definitely mine and Mike's expectations out of the water. Uh,
absolutely.
Out of the water so far already. Just to extend their lead at the top of the not just the Eastern Conference, but the whole Supporter Shield. Like it was just, yeah, I think it's just a bit. I guess it's a testament to how well they've done this season that we're coming away from this result disappointed that they haven't won. Um, when again we've seen instances last year and the year before that when they've gone and played against 10 men and even lost a game or
Yep.
a man up and lost games.
Like the
So
Miami game we saw last year.
Miami
Absolutely.
game last year, like they've lost games or they've blown leads against teams. So I mean, they never looked in danger tonight of losing the game, which I guess is one positive. Looked defensively solid. I thought McCann was a big positive on it. I thought
I
he
like
looked quite
Macania.
solid and composed. And I think there was one moment that stood out for me in the second half when I think Dallas did look to potentially threaten. There was a brick wall, stood there, stood firm, won the ball, and then a little dinked pass, little chip pass out to the left, and thought perfect. That's what we need for the second half of these situations. Nothing reckless, nothing rash. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it sounds weird to say. It feels like there are so many positives to come out of what was a negative result. The only thing that's negative is the scoreline. Everything else you look at, and obviously not scoring, but you think there are so many positives coming out of the game, like creating chances. It just felt like they were never going to score tonight, and if they'd have played another 180 minutes.
Yeah, well, listen, Joe mentioned here from last year. Miami was down to 9 men, and they beat us last year, so we don't have that worry this year. But Jose, if you're ready to chat with us, so give me a thumbs up if you're good to go. One question here that Sean brings up here is that the lineup was totally unacceptable when you don't play a league game for 14 days. So some fans, and this isn't just Sean, I saw this on Twitter as well. Some fans thought you don't play for 14 days. Why not start the game with your full, complete starting 11, the best 11 you can hand, and then try to get those 3 points on the road? Or were you okay with tonight's lineup with the heavy rotation? Or do you think that they should have gone for it earlier in the match rather than waiting until the substitutions later on?
Well, good evening, Dave. Good morning to you, my friend. Yeah, you know what? When it comes to this rotation, I feel like it's tough to argue with Bradley Cornell at this point right now with
Yeah.
what he has managed over this. Again, like I think it was Steve. I was scrolling through some of the comments here. Yeah, this team has indeed played 9 matches in 1 month, has gone undefeated the entire month, traveled pretty heavily too for some of it. Going to Canada and then going to Dallas, Texas is no joke. Toronto. So when it comes to these types of decisions, I have a hard time arguing with Bradley about it. Would I have liked to have seen Quinn Sullivan start? I feel like there was like a second spark or like a second win
Yep.
once he got in. I think that would have been great. Would Baribo or Damiani have been a better choice to start the match? Maybe, who knows? But ultimately, I remain amazed, and this is maybe the um, half full type of personality that I have, golden retriever personality of mine. But like, I again, like, if you were to tell this fan base that 9 matches in 1 month in May, that the team would go undefeated and
15
be
points in that
15
month.
points and go to where they are in the league right now, both in the Eastern Conference and the overall supporter shield, like, they would tell you that you're joking or you're drunk or you're high or one of everything. So the one thing I will say though is that this match is pretty telling that uh, come playoffs, when matches come, well, I guess that isn't true anymore with the new format, but what I was going to say is when matches come pretty fast and quick, which they don't anymore because it's the best of three, and then you have like a best of one or best of two. I forget what it turns into at this point, or
I
they
think
might
just
switch it this
knockout
year.
rounds.
Yeah, then it's knockout rounds. Like this team, once you start getting maybe to these deeper ends of the bench, it's pretty telling that there's a little bit of a drop off. But ultimately, I thought Bedoya looked totally fine for
Yep.
the minutes that he put in there. Maybe that's his role, right? Like, what was it, 60 some minutes he was on the field for? Like,
Correct.
maybe that's his role. In fact, I would argue that he was probably the best player the first 5 or 6 minutes, especially with that flick where Chris Donovan just missed the frame completely. And obviously, I joke, it's like, I hope it doesn't come to bite them, and of course it did. But I think that the bigger story here is, and not to bury the lead, is just this team. I think maybe historically has always had had a hard time playing with a man up,
Yep.
and this was another episode of that nightmare that they continue to run into, where they just cannot figure out how to beat teams a man up, and we saw that with Mikey. I know you and I kept on going back to this game, the Red
Red
Bulls
Bull.
game two,
Mhm.
3 years ago, where like that would have been the deciding factor for, among many others, that could have been the deciding factor for the Union hosting MLS Cup versus going through that crazy tiebreaker that sent it out to Los Angeles. So again, I think when you take a step back and you look at the macro level of what they just completed and the bottoming out of the Eastern Conference today, with DC United showing up to play, Miami throttling Columbus, which I just wrote about for MLSsoccer.com. Make sure you click on it at some point. The Union are very fortunate to have maybe gone unscathed or not gone as poorly as it could have, because everybody else could have won and they would have just been, only securing 1 point. But I
Right.
always go by the saying, as you would too, Dave. I think it's more of a Premier League saying, you win at home, draw away. Well, they've been winning at home and drawing away, or this one is a draw specifically.
Absolutely. Jose, real quick, were you on the press conference at all with Cornell?
No, I try to hop on, and I think because they're remote, they don't have a command center to allow people in. So I'm guessing that Bradley was talking, and then my dumb face showed up as someone trying to get into the press conference while he's like staring at a screen. So
That's
no, I
funny.
didn't get a chance to. Andre was. Oh, there you go. That's where Andre was, folks.
Yeah, so Jillian Almany joins us on the comments saying, in case you guys missed it, Bradley said Andre had a family commitment, which is why Andrew Rick was net and Oliver Semley was his backup. Now, a couple comments I want to bring up real quick because I think they're pretty interesting points here. Let's go with Cord saying, my issue is that this is our third tie in the last 6 games. So a total of 6 points lost against Columbus, Miami, and now tonight, which are just absolute killers. And I don't disagree. And I think in terms of the Miami and Columbus draws in particular, they killed you so bad because they were so late in those matches. Like, yes, I know tonight you had the man lead and all that stuff, but I think for me personally, if I had to line those 3 draws up, those killed me more, especially because they're at home too, against Miami and Columbus than tonight's.
Yeah.
Steve Fuentes' comment: Cindy lost and Orlando lost. Would the Union Nation rather be their fan base right now? No. These draws the Union have had in the previous years have resulted in losses. Let's be appreciative of the draws we are seeing right now. And
Knicks
T-Mac
lost.
says, I
Knicks
know.
lost.
Good. I hate the Knicks. T-Mac
Yes.
says, brother, you are behind. India
I
and
am
Pacers
so
are on to
behind.
the finals.
I've been click clacking away for MLS. I'm so sorry. I'm
It's
so
okay.
happy.
TJ
Team-
McConnell.
That's right, TJ McConnell, baby. T-Mac says, I actually think we played well against 10 men today. You just had to expect our club record DP striker finish one of at least 4 excellent chances provided to him. Sean says, we've been running away with the East if you finish those games out. That's the thing. Sean makes a great point. If you close at least 2 of these 3 games that we've kind of lost points on, you have what, like a 7-point lead in the Eastern Conference, 8-point lead in the Eastern Conference. That's pretty fantastic. So if you want to look at things from the bright side, you're a couple mistakes away from having a fantastic lead, not only Eastern Conference, but in Supporter Shield as well. Because we are still top of the MLS, I believe, with Vancouver. Have they did they play right now? No, or did they not play tonight? I didn't check the schedule, the full schedule. But one thing we want to talk about is Michael Uwa. He goes down. I think it was in the 30. If someone reminds me right now, when did Michael Uwa go down
I
tonight?
think it was like the 31st minute, wasn't it? I think.
Early on. Jose, did you hear any word about what might have happened to Michael before he got brought out for Damiani?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
Probably maybe I jinxed it when I asked about the medical staff and just like how fortunate they were to get through that spell without that many or any real injuries beyond Andre's, like, I hate to say it this way, but like scheduled knee injury that he gets every single year. So like,
Yep.
yeah, for them to go through one injury during this entire spell is still pretty amazing.
Yeah, so Cord and Joe both mentioned here Vancouver plays in the Champions Cup tomorrow, so they did not play tonight in MLS. And then Cole says a groin injury for Mika, and that's what it certainly seemed like. We saw him kind of reaching for that groin area, which is it's if you're looking at the silver lining, and thank God he has a couple weeks now to rest. But at the same time, groin injuries, hamstring injuries, these things can linger. They can be something that pops up again and again. So of course we are hoping for nothing but the best for Michael Ua. But this brings us back to our point, Bruno Damiani. So Dave kind of talked about it, Jose. I want to kind of hear your thoughts. I know you've been a big Bruno Damiani advocate this season so far.
Dan.
Yeah, I know your thoughts on Damiani, because right now the fans are getting frustrated with him. This was a match where they wanted to see why we spent so much money on him. You're up a man. You've had chances. Just get the goddamn ball and put it in the back of the net. Jose, let's hear your thoughts on Mr. Damiani tonight.
It was, I think, across the board. And yes, it's easy to cherry pick the guy who's worth the most or has the biggest transfer value. I totally get that, especially one that's in front of the net or that far up the field. And I'm not going to make any, additional shields. He doesn't need it. He's a professional, right? Like, he should have probably scored one or two. He had some pretty critical chances, especially the one where it just went over the bar there on the cross from I think it was Quinn, which I think I did it on Twitter, but like, if I didn't type it out, shout out to Lukic and Quinn in that little sequence, just spreading the ball and getting it across so nicely. That should have been scored. But hey, listen, like, going back not just to that goal and Damiani, sure, he should have scored at least one, I would think. These are the games where maybe this team learns from, right? Like this, and it's the halfway. This is officially the halfway point through the season. Doing as well as they are, they can't win every single game. I think that's just something to acknowledge. But I also totally understand why you would flip the coin and say, well, yeah, but if this, then that. And that's probably easier to do. But to this point, someone brought up Ua, and I'm not sure if this is the point they were making, but like, he's getting the same type of treatment that Mikel Ua was getting. But the reality is that Mikel Ua is 5th in overall rankings for goals for this club in his short time with the Union. You know who he's tied with? Carranza. So like, it's still one of those, like, yeah, like it'll happen. And I still firmly believe, from everything I have heard, everything I have read about Damiani, that once one or two go in that are not penalty goals, like, it's sort of like the floodgates just open and the confidence is there. And I know that's so easy to say, but ultimately, I think, having played some ball myself, like, that's literally what happens. You put one or two in, and like, suddenly the goal is like 3 times bigger. Like, Dave, I see you nodding. You can chime in if you want. I'm not sure if I'm really answering your question, Mike, but I guess all I really ask for is patience, because Mikel Ua himself, again, 5th in overall ranking for this club in goals, like, did not have the hottest start with this club. Never mind Gostag. We didn't even have to go into how slow he was to get started.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, Jose, you obviously Julian just popped in. I know Julian, but I think I said the exact same thing as you, Jose. Just needs to just bag, if he has a chance in one game and a chance in the next game, just take 2 chances in a row, and then you just see that confidence start to grow. And I think that will be the big thing for Damiani. And again, he's young. trying to repeat myself from earlier. He's only played before this year. He'd only played about 70 like senior games in his career. So like again, I think preaching. I think as you said, Jose, preaching. Patience and time and giving him the opportunity to grow and adjust to the league and grow confidence is the main thing. And again, I think I don't know if you'd agree with this, Jose. I think and Gillian and Carl as well. Carl's joined in there is. Um, I would be more concerned if he wasn't in those positions to actually have the chances than if he was just anonymous for the whole game, hovering around the box, not winning headers, not competing to get the ball. So I think again, I'd see it as more of a positive. He's in the positions. He just needs to get his shooting boots and hit the back of the net.
I'm not a big statistic person, and I haven't looked yet. If someone in the chat wants to look, but I'm guessing that his expected goals number must have been through the fucking roof, considering the misses that Damiani had. And never mind Chris Donovan, must be like unbelievably high considering that header.
Yeah. Cord mentions here the other miss was Donovan header in the 28th minute, wide open in front of the net. Kyle and Jillian both joined us now. We're just kind of touching on this whole match, the frustration with Damiani, the fact that we again dropped points. We had the opportunity to take 3 on the road. But Kyle, I'm gonna shoot to you first on this one. You projected that you would have been happy with 11 points, I believe you said, throughout May. We end May with 15 points and 2 wins in Open Cup. So I'll ask you first, and then I'll shoot to Jillian. What are your overall feelings now that this very long month is finally over?
What is it now? How many points did we get?
15.
15. Okay. I'm through the roof, and the fact that tonight we got lucky with DC taking out Cincinnati, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, this is those kind of breaks that last year you weren't getting. They're getting them this year. So, I mean, overall, you can be frustrated being down a man, 0-0 draw, but you still get a point on the road. Andrew Rick gets a clean sheet. You take it and move forward. And Jose, to your point, the XG on Damiani was 0.86 at FootMob. So
listen, the only thing I'll add about Damiani here to just put a bow on my piece is like, isn't this kind of what you want out of your strikers too?
Yes.
In terms of like having a trident per se. I remember that 2022 season where it was Ua, Carranza, Gastag, and like they weren't all hot at the same time. It's like once one would cool off, the other two would do great. Once one of the two would cool off, one would come back and continue it. So like the reality is that you want to have this constant, which is scoring goals, no matter who of the two or single ones going at it. You want to have these guys moving along. And honestly, I don't know, Mike. I don't know, Dave, Kyle, Jillian. I'd rather have Damiani bag 10 goals in the playoffs than put 10 prior to get into the playoffs. I'd rather him bag a hat trick in the US Open Cup semifinal and the final than to put 3 in a one of 37 matches in MLS, especially when other results are allowing the Union to remain where they are. So like, again, maybe my cup is unbelievably high or, full. That's sort of the way I'm sort of like computing it in my head when you think about a guy who's pretty fresh into the league yet.
I mean, you think of just, like how a player goes. Like, let's say, for example, a player who typically shoots 35%, 40% from 3 behind the arc, they go through a 1 for 20 stretch, but they're getting clean shots and they're just barely missing. You think, okay, like the opportunities are there. They're getting the looks. They're just not falling. Eventually, it's going to have to go the other way. And I think, Jose, to your point, I'm sorry, Michael, to his point, Damiani's making contact at least. I felt like he was the only one getting there. So, yeah, it sucks right now. And I'm sure, and you can see every time he misses like a goal, you can see how frustrated Damiani is. He's like rubbing his face. You can see his head struggling. Like you can tell it's eating him up inside. So eventually, once those start hitting the back of the net, we might really have a great weapon on that front line. But Jillian, how about your thoughts on tonight? What are your thoughts on the result? Or maybe you want to chime in on Damiani as well.
Yeah. What, Kyle?
Well, I just wanted to finish up the Jose's point. The thing that stuck out to me tonight was the fact that he was getting in those dangerous positions. But you go ahead.
That's what I was going to say, basically. But
go ahead too.
Yeah, no, he is in those dangerous positions. He's getting chances. He's going to connect at some point. Like I said, maybe he needs to shave his head, not Kevin. But I think we're going to see that from him. Like you said, he's where he needs to be. Just just missing, but I think that'll come, and hopefully it'll come at the right time for sure.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, I'll take the road point, but yeah, it would have been nice to come away with 3 being up a man. But like Kyle said, Brick got a clean sheet. Definitely, with a rotated lineup and with all the matches they had to play, it's, it is what it is. I thought, as people who were at the Next Pro Cup in Frisco last November, when they mentioned that, I was like, this is a special game here coming back for Rick and Makanya and Frankie.
Sure.
I thought Makanya did a pretty good job tonight, and I thought that was good to see, considering he got sent off with a red card the last time he was in that stadium. So it was someone else's turn to get the red card, but no, I thought it was good to see those guys do well. In their return.
And the fact that they get a point for the first time in MLS play since 2012 is massive. I mean, there are certain stadiums, we all know that, being athletes and all that places just don't go well for teams at certain times and certain points in life. So, hey, you take it. I mean, yeah, 3 points probably could have been had, but you can't be too disappointed.
Well, I mean, Jillian, this goes back to our conversation we had after the previous match. I think you had said we don't do well in Toronto. We get the win out there. We don't do well in this place in Atlanta. We get a win out there. Now we don't do well in Dallas, and we get a point. So I think you have to appreciate the fact that this team is still getting points in these tough environments, because when you come to the playoffs, especially with these 3-game series, you're going to have to play at least one game on the road. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, the Union finish on top of the Eastern Conference and they get the home field advantage throughout the entire Eastern Conference playoffs. There's at least one game in that first round that you're going to get, I would assume, right? They don't skip that first round, right? I don't know what the playoff structure is at this point. They play in that first round game of 3, don't they? The series 3? Right?
My brain's not working to think about playoffs right now. Anything that's scary that far in the season.
So even from Open Cup, let's say you make it the Open Cup final. I don't know if it's in Chester, so you might have to play one tough road game in some sort of playoff fashion. Yeah, I want to see this team do well in tough environments. So we'll see. I think the one game I'm super interested in particular is the Cincinnati match. When we go to Cincinnati to play on the road, I want to see how well they play out there. Same with Columbus. I don't think we've played in Columbus yet on the road, have we? No, right? So another tough environment that we're going to go to. We're going to bring up this comment real quick. Reminding me a lot of in the 11 game. This team struggles with a low block and lots of possession. And Steve also joins us saying the way that Kai, Lukic, and Quinn have been able to set up Bruno for possible opportunities will continue. The goals will happen. So, Dave, real quick on the substitutions, we kind of take on to the next part of this conversation. We had Lukic in for Bueno, Vasiliev in for Danley Jean-Jacques, Quinn Sullivan for Bedoya, Baribo for Donovan. Of course, Damiani replaced an injured Michael Ua. Dave, any thoughts on the substitutions tonight with the 5 replacements that Carnell had?
Considering the way that they'd obviously rotated after Tuesday night, you're obviously going to have a very strong bench. Against I think it was always you're always going to. That sounds harsh to the players that play at the start, but you're always going to get stronger as the game went on. Bringing on your better players. Lukic, Baribo. The top. I think he's still the top goal scorer in the MLS. I don't know.
I think he's the top goal scorer.
Yeah, I think he's still Lukic. Quinn Sullivan, even Damiani, obviously again looks good when he came on. Obviously, and I wouldn't say he's better than Mikel at the moment, but good when he came on. He's obviously he's a good enough caliber player where he is going to cause problems for opposition teams. Again, I think the substitutions, I think they're all correct. I mean, it was just a case of how you were going to utilise the substitutions in the game. I presume. Perhaps Bradley Carnell looked at that as whenever if we do go a goal down or we are struggling, we've got players that we can bring on off the bench to, have a positive impact on the game. And I think we did see that. I mean, again, I know people are upset at Damiani, but again, he was heavily involved. He had plenty of chances. I thought, as Jose alluded to as well, I thought Quinn Sullivan came on and looked positive and gave the team that second spark as the game went on. I thought Lukic looked good in midfield as well. I think the Union played with not to sound harsh towards Bueno, but I think there was a bit more purpose of getting the ball forward and Lukic came on as opposed to in the first half, it was sort of a bit more side to side and trying to pick, trying to wait for the perfect angle or the perfect, but what's the word? So it's 5 o'clock, nearly 4, half 4 in the morning here. That area of space to open up to play the pass, whereas Lukic obviously is more of a commanding player, pressing the ball, getting forward. So again, I think they're all positive substitutions. It was just again unfortunate that they couldn't get that elusive goal to extend the lead, not just the top of the Eastern Conference, but the support shield rankings.
Absolutely. Steve mentions here, where is Jan in the recovery journey? They did all this with their offseason center back out with injury. He'll return when it matters most. It seems at this point that he's basically going to be coming back around the Charlotte game, if not a little bit later. I assume with his timeline, that's probably where the trajectory is for that. If any of you guys have heard otherwise, chime in. But I think I'm assuming that's when he'll be back, is around mid-June or so, once we kind of restart the season. Sean also says, do any of you guys see any transfers coming in summer window to strengthen the team more for the playoff run? At this point, I don't think we've heard anything. Jose, have you heard anything regarding any potential prospects they're looking at in that summer window?
I cannot comment on rumor speculation.
Okay, gotcha. Jose, I will keep you on the mic, though. The one player I was kind of intrigued by getting taken out was Danley Jean-Jacques for Indy Vasilov. Now, Jillian, again, when you and I talk, we talk about Indy's ups and downs we've seen so far. We do think that somebody's in the final third. He hasn't been that strong. I was personally happy to see Bender play a full match, but at the same time, when you have that card, the red card so early, you want to go for 3 points. I kind of was hoping for Indy to replace Bender as well. Any thoughts on Vasilov's performance tonight, Bender, and maybe taking out Danley rather than letting him play the full 90?
I think it's nice to see Bender go out and run a full 90. I think if you haven't read it, look. I'll make sure to share it again, or make sure we can put it somewhere. But Todd Lewis's conversation with Ben Bender, really good conversation. Two Maryland dorks being dorks about fishing and all other topics Maryland. So make sure you read it. But nice to see him, right? Like you bring in somebody from the outside into the club, like. It's good to see him being actually used on like previous years where, think about Joaquin Torres. He gives the Union fan base and media one moment against Chicago, the opening day. And like, where did he go? Right. Like it's nice to see an actual player that was brought in to actually eat up some minutes. So I thought Vasilov too is I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued onto Vasilov's role. I think he is the Energizer Bunny in a way, right? He's out there just working. That's great, but like, can he provide something offensively? I don't know. I didn't see much of it today, though. Then again, I don't think that this is a team. And if somehow this gets back to Bradley Cornell, like I'm sorry, but I don't know. I want to figure out how this club can break down the opposition when they are a man down, because it seems like they just can't figure that out. You have this advantage and they just bunker down and just can't break them down. And obviously this is a club that has Andrew Rick, which can break 2 lines of defense, 3 potentially in a single pass. And then you have some other defenders that can ping the ball very nicely. Never mind some midfielders when Stanley and Lukic come in that can ping the ball around and put some nice through balls. But when the block is in, it's just so difficult to see how this happens. But substitution pattern wise, again, like it's hard to argue with anything that Cornell has done this month. I sort of trust the guy and his analytics team to have a rhyme or reason for what they're doing, though. One thing of note, in listening to Javier Mascherano after the Inter Miami game, Fafa Picault, despite being on the same roster that Danley was in, Javier Mascherano said that Fafa is only going for the World Cup qualifiers, not the Gold Cup. I'm not sure if that applies to Danley, so I need to sort of work that back a little bit and do a little bit more asking about, because that would be very interesting to have I can't imagine so, but to have a Danley just play 2 World Cup qualifiers and hover around Philadelphia for a month. It's a lot better than having him do 2 World Cup qualifiers and potentially a nice run into the Gold Cup. We would be immensely proud of him, but nonetheless, I think fan base and others would probably be happy with him just sticking about and not putting his body through that type of mileage.
Now, one comment besides the one I have on the screen, Michael mentions here, I almost would have added Mbaizo for some more service from tonight.
Was
But
he on
the
the
thing is,
roster?
I was just about to say that, Jose. Yeah, Mbaizo wasn't in the roster tonight. The remaining subs on the bench were Kevin Sullivan, Jeremy Raffanello, Jacob Glessis, and Oliver Semle. So, Jillian, you and I talked about this last show. Olivier is the odd man out, and I think now that Ben Bender is part of this rotation, obviously seeing some heavy minutes, it seems like Olivier is the one that will not be getting called upon for this roster. But I want to kind of ask both of you guys. I guess let's take three questions. You kind of discuss it over the next couple minutes. One, Olivier's absence tonight. Two, the positive that Jacob Glessons did not see any minutes, and he finally got a night off. And three, how about Lucho Acosta? Our former foe from Cincinnati is now with Dallas. I'm kind of curious on your thoughts on how he performed tonight, seeing him with a different kid on tonight.
Yeah, you want to?
I mean, Lucho is Lucho. I will say this. I mean,
You contained him though.
You contained him, and as much as we want, and I've had this discussion with some other people, I feel like he's kind of regressed this year a little bit.
Okay.
You look at his stats, but he's still Lucho Acosta. So, I mean, he's still going to be solid, but he was fine. Bizo, I mean, I think we all agree the writing's on the wall.
We'll see him play against Atlas.
Yeah, maybe we'll see him play against Atlas, but, I mean, at this point, what does the guy got to do to get a spot on the bench? I think that's all you need to tell. Anything you got to add?
Yeah, I mean, he is odd man out here, and Carnell clearly loves having Frankie in there. I mean, Frankie's been playing good. And I think with Glessness, I mean, he's on yellow card accumulation warning too, and he's played so much. I mean, giving him a rest isn't a bad idea. So, it was fine. And I thought, they did fine. I thought Makanya was real good tonight. I thought Harrell did fine. So yeah. I mean, I think it was a good move just resting Glessness, honestly.
I think it's important to have that rest. We talked about how important it was to see Kai Wagner get the rest. Now we have Glessens in there, especially now for Glessens in particular. He gets the rest tonight, but then also he has got that 2-week break. So he's really got a long stretch now where he can kick his feet up and enjoy some of that rest that he's obviously deserved. He's played so much over the last few years. Michael says, oh, wait, wrong comment. Sorry about that. Let's bring this one up. Michael says, Lucho was pretty abysmal both this week and against FC Cincinnati. T-Mac says, trade Mbaizo to open a roster spot and bring in a U2 attacking mid. Steve says, fans want a big move in the summer with how high vibes and chemistry with this club currently are, and could add in a star player versus another role player be more beneficial or hurtful at this point. And I think that's a point that's been brought up from ownership. And do we bring in a superstar, or bring in somebody who's going to mess up the chemistry? I think we just need someone who's going to be impactful on a week-to-week basis. I think, Dave, you might have said this with Davo, right? You got him on, and we got him to the roster, and then he just never played. It's like at least you're seeing Bender and seeing these players coming on and actually contributing and playing long minutes, whereas you just didn't see that from this club in the past. Valerie says Lucho looks sad. Michael says defense held strong. Philly says, when do the yellows restart? Jose, Dave, do anybody guys know when do the yellow cards restart?
That was the first I saw him on the accumulation warning. I think, didn't he have a yellow in the Toronto match? So he's got to go a few games here. I think so.
Wait, who are we talking about?
Glessness.
Sorry.
No, I have no idea. He plays. I'm glad he wasn't on the roster. I mean, he was on the roster. I'm glad he didn't play today. Just let him rest. And don't put him in front of a Mexican competition. Like, that's not worth it. Just let him sit. Let him put his feet up.
Yeah, you could get Neil Pierre back for that. Maybe Neil plays against Atlas because he's been training.
I'm actually bummed that I don't think Jan Glavinovic would be a player to feature on the 7th. Can't imagine that they would throw him into that, especially against that.
On a friendly or against a Mexican side? No way.
A Mexican side that's going to throw triple-digit jerseys? No, I don't think so.
No,
I was going to say, regarding the Mbaizo situation, I know obviously, I think it was the last year that obviously he had made it somewhat clear was it last year or the year before? He'd obviously made it clear he wanted to go back to or go play in Europe or leave America. So, but something regarding his family situation, I don't know.
It was a visa with his family, like you said, Dave. Something with that, and they were trying to figure something out. Nothing. And Jose might know more, but I don't know the whole story. I just remember Jim's comment being like they were looking to get him back, and something must have worked out.
Yeah.
Someone had told me that this was I think it was Jim actually who had made the comment during one of the press conferences that like this is not new, guys. Like this is something that Mbaizo has been sharing with us for a couple of years, the frustrations of the visa process or whatever, bringing his family over. So honestly, I have no idea about the guy. I haven't asked anything. In fact, I haven't. It's been such a busy week with reunion weekend at the college I work at that like I was busy entertaining 900 people instead of getting on the phone asking about soccer for funsies. So I don't have any information.
I was gonna say maybe I wonder now is potentially the time where Barzo finally does leave the union, and I know especially with the European transfer window about to open, this might be the time where he gets his perfect move abroad back to Europe, and where the visa restrictions are a lot less difficult or a pain in the ass, as to put it lightly, as we've seen with the union over the years. The visa and green card issues that we've seen. Again, to be fair, this is it for Barnes. I'm not saying the writing's on the wall, but I think, as we all sort of alluded to, it looks like he's slowly becoming the odd man out. There's that. I mean, he's played his part in the history of the team. He guided the team to their first support shield, played in the MLS Cup. Like,
buys of the Gillingham, Dave.
If the union are willing to pay half his wages, sure.
T-Mac actually brings a point, and this, Jose, goes to your post you posted on 5/29. Can we recall Nelson Pierre? He's finishing a hell of a lot better than every striker not named Baribo. And Jose, you had posted on 29th that Nelson Pierre, currently on loan with Vancouver's Whitecaps FC number 2, now leads MLS Next Pro with 10 goals this season. Do we see Pierre coming back at all, do you think, Jose?
No, I frankly don't know or have dug up any details on the loan details. Obviously, I think that most, if not all of them, probably come with some sort of like, here's the cost for breaking up a loan type of like a clause type of stuff. But like, I don't know. I enjoy watching MLS Next for us as much as the next person, not as much as Kyle and Jillian, but it is a U22 league for what it is. Like, that's still not playing against men. With all due respect to the league, and I enjoy watching, and I cut clips because I'm a sick person, but like it's not the same. So I'm happy he's thriving.
Yeah,
don't get me wrong. He is one of those prospects. Before we move on, he's one of those prospects where what it could have been, because he's got the physical. He's got an unbelievable frame to play soccer. Like I am. He is a monster of a kid.
And he's still really young too.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part. He's still really young. It just hasn't worked out. Now he's got a fresh start. It's like you gotta be happy for him. Like to see him scoring the way he's scoring, having that confidence. It's awesome to see. But yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I think that ship sailed. Unfortunately,
One thing I kind of want to chat about, it's a little bit off the topic of the Union versus Dallas, but it does mention Lucho Costa, which you talked about a little bit tonight. I don't know if you guys saw the interview, I think with this past week, that Lucho got booed in Cincinnati, and he seemed to be upset by it. So I'm kind of curious to know your thoughts on everything, on both players coming back. I think we all saw when Daniel Gazza came back, we were all very welcoming. We were excited to see Daniel again. I thought he got a great standing ovation. They had the video as well, but Lucho seemed very upset that he was booed, and he seemed like he deserved a better response. Jillian and Kyle, I'm kind of curious. I'll go to you guys first. Did you agree with Mr. Acosta on those comments?
Yeah, it's funny because we actually talked about that during the game. I said, how he was complaining Gazdag had a really warm reception, but Philly fans are awful, right? No. Well, and I think a lot of it goes, with how the departure went too, right? Yes. So I think that makes a big difference too. But I think, did Lucho deserve to be booed? Probably not with the contributions he had there. But I think it all goes down to how he departed too. I mean, with Daniel, it was just.
I think the departure left a sour taste in a lot of Cincinnati fans. So I think. Recency bias, they're going to treat that other than the accolades, unfortunately. for him.
Definitely. Jose, any thoughts, sir, on Mr. Lucio's comments?
I do have thoughts because it was, and Jillian and Kyle will know how peeved I was. I was able to catch the ESPN Argentina interview and I translated it, and it was running wild and no attribution to the actual person who did the work to fucking translate the damn thing. But listen, this is a guy who asked to leave FC Cincinnati, a perfectly fine spot with a win now roster, declare that he wanted to at one point go back to Argentina. In fact, he skipped end of season press conference duties to go and do an ESPN Argentina interview, dubbing it as a family commitment that he had to skip press for. So he lied about what he had to do to go do an ESPN Argentina thing. But fast forward to all the nonsense that he put that club through in terms of trying to sort out, like he was sort of like the pivoting piece. Like if he moves, then they can bring Evander in, and then he can go to Dallas. And he was like the first domino to fall in a whole bunch of different transactions that were pending. So yeah, I don't know what he's on about. I think he's maybe a little lost in the sauce, and sure, he was like a great servant to that club. But I just also want to say, you mentioned Gastag. Goals, no assists in 9 games with Columbus. They call that 009. Agent with license to kill.
Is Tanner's moving Gazdag seem better and better as the weeks go by? Is that what you're suggesting, Jose? Because it seems
I said that tonight to somebody else.
Now, all I'm saying is that I was one of the first to say that I would have thought that this would be like a hand to a glove. Like it was going to be a perfect fit based on what Columbus has, but something is not fitting correctly. And then they go and get beat 5-2 today against Inter Miami, and obviously have not had the greatest to go here with him. So yeah, maybe this is very much addition by subtraction, and I know some folks in the fan base don't like that sentence, and that's okay. But the reality is that like maybe getting probably 4 million. I don't think he's gonna maybe hit any accolades or any things to get the other 500,000, but maybe 4 million wasn't a bad figure for someone who goes 9 games without a goal and an assist despite being in one of the best attacking sides in the league. Maybe it's not bad business.
Wouldn't a counter argument to that be, though, Jose, similar to Bruno Damiani? He just needs some time.
It could be.
Right?
So I would go ahead and argue to the moon and back that Columbus, even to this stage, is wildly underperforming considering that roster. Like Daniel Gastag should be putting up an assist a game with that roster, with Diego Rossi and Arfson and all those other guys. Like that is a loaded roster. That's a win now roster.
Right.
I never thought I thought Philadelphia was going to be good. I didn't think they were a win now roster, which is kind of what we're seeing with Carnell's maneuvering.
Well, T-Mac says attacking players seem to struggle to acclimate to Nancy's coaching. Diego Rossi looked woeful for a similar stretch of time when the crew signed him. Odd situation over there. And Michael says Columbus fans aren't quite sold on Gazdag yet, as nice as I could say, and I don't doubt them. I know they want him to produce, considering the money they spent and the accolades he's had as the Union's all-time leading goal scorer. Dave, I'll kind of end with you on this Lucho conversation. This kind of reminds me of when Gardner Johnson left the Eagles, right? He got sent to Detroit for 1 year and he comes back, and I believe he went on Twitter or Twitch trashing all the Eagles fans, all that stuff. But suddenly when he comes back, we're open arms, welcome him again back into the roster, like nothing bad ever happened. Do you agree though with Lucho's comments or the fans' frustrations with him?
I think you can definitely understand the fans' frustration. I think as Carl sort of alluded to, if you're adamantly coming out saying you want to leave the club and you're making your desires, you're essentially saying your desire is to move on. Like, of course, the fans are going to take that one, especially when you are their star player and essentially that franchise has built their team around to make sure that again for the last couple of years he has been one of the best player or the best player in the MLS outside of Messi in terms of the levels he performed at. Like
Cucho too,
do you know what I mean? Like, and of course you can be frustrated to see your best player basically making those sort of comments. I understand the frustration from the Cincinnati perspective, and then alluding to like Gazdag, like again, like that seems more of an organizational move than whether Gazdag wanted to move or not. Like again, job, if you know what I mean. So again, that was shown with the nice reception he did get. And obviously, I think perhaps it's the case, where the two franchises are, where Cincinnati have obviously been more competitive the last couple of years, as opposed to the Union sort of been meandering around, nearly competing. And Gazdag's played a great part of the team's history again. I mean, I think it's the record goal scorer in the club's history. Again, he made that year where him, Carranza, and Noah were just firing all cylinders to get to the MLS Cup finals, sort of an unprecedented level of scorers. So I'd like to think that the fan base has a much more fond memories of Gazdag, where perhaps he's left at a time where the team, I think the Jew sort of Jose alluded to as well, like this didn't look like it was going to be a win now year.
No.
More of a retooling year, trying to assert how Bradley Carnell wants to play and how he wants to build his team. So it feels like Gazdag left at a time perhaps which was right for all parties, as opposed to Acosta, where again Cincinnati they're flying high this year. They're second in the table. The Eastern Conference is still a solid roster competing. So
I mean, you got to think too. Lucho's now with a team that's 4-6-6 in the Western Conference. So I'm looking at the table real quick. They are in 11th place. Like, I can't imagine he's having fun playing this type of soccer when he knows he just left a team that is still competing for a top playoff spot. But we're reaching the hour mark now, so we'll kind of wrap things up as we close this show. And we
just looking up, I don't think it was a good birthday for him either. Actually, just realised it was his birthday. No, yesterday, today.
That's listen, rough weekend for Mr. Acosta. But let's listen. We all have had a very long month. I think as much as the Union players and the coaches have been active, the 5 of us have been very busy with our reporting. The post game show, we've had 9 matches to cover this month. So Jillian, I guess I'll go around the other way since Kyle's currently off screen. Dave, overall feeling entering this little break. How confident are you this team entering June, and what do you expect out of these 3 matches that we have coming up against Charlotte at home, Chicago, and Columbus on the road?
I think it's hard not to feel overwhelmingly positive. I think, especially with how we, again, Mike alluded to earlier, how we were feeling coming into the season. That the Union have been the best team in the MLS. They're on a very good unbeaten record, and going into the second half of the season, I think you'd like to think that you'd like to feel confident they keep this going on. Like they look very solid defensively as well. Impacting at the moment, and they're just not losing games. I know they've obviously the Columbus draw and the Miami draw were very frustrating. They conceded very late goals, but they're not losing games, which is the most important part. They don't look like they're going to be losing games. So, I mean, the next 3 games again, they're going to be tough. As is the case in the MLS. I mean, Charlotte at home will be that's the game you'd expect to win. But again, you've then got Chicago and Columbus and back-to-back games, away games on the Saturday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Saturday. Sorry, or Wednesday, Saturday, whenever this.
Wednesday. It's not like England, Dave. It's
Wednesday for some reason. So I mean. Again, 5 road games. I know obviously you had the 2-week gap in between, but 4 road games in 5 is a tough stretch.
It is, yeah.
So again, looking at that, I think if you could take 4, 5 points, even 6 points out of that stretch, and somehow manage come out of that plus, I think you look at it very positively. But I think again, it's just the way. I think it's also a testament. This run is how strong this roster is and how much belief that Carl actually has in the overall roster, perhaps which you haven't seen with Jim Curtin in recent years, where people would have been out on their feet and people picking up little injuries and knocks where, where literally we're calling for changes and, he's trotting out Ali Bedoya for another 90 minutes for his 7th game in a row. Like, it's nice to see players being utilised and given minutes and the opportunity to shine. So, I mean, definitely. I think the second half of the year, you can't be anything but extremely positive. I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully, this team go on a run which could end in another, potentially an Open Cup final. Who knows? Don't want to.
That'd be nice. Domesticated Hoagie says, if the goal was 50 feet wider and 50 feet higher, we would have 100 goals tonight. I mean, one could only hope, Hoagie, that we have that. And Valerie mentions, well, wonders never cease. LA versus RSL 1-0 in the 50th minute. Jose, Again, you're probably the highest on this club entering this season. We had a very tough stretch in May. Same question, same vibe from you. What's your final thought on this club? We had a very impressive 9 games. What do you expect of these next 3 come June?
As long as everybody stays healthy, I think that everybody goes on their international duty, comes back with no more than 150 minutes under their feet. I think Danley's probably the only one that has the possibility of playing 180 realistically, based on well, if he only plays 2 Club World Cups. I think it's a hell of a lot longer if he goes on to do the what's it called, the Gold Cup. As long as everybody remains healthy and they come back, I think it's going to be more of the same. And I think the Union right now are just making their own luck, which is what they can control. They can't control what the other team's going to do, but what they can do is try to maneuver them into doing something that they don't want to do. So I think that it's also probably important to just recognize that the Union are playing with absolutely house money right now, because the expectations for most of the fan base and even the media was unbelievably low, like basement levels of low. But the reality is that maybe they do know what they're doing, right? So we'll see. Just eager to have a little break. I don't know. I know we have, I don't know how many people we have watching, but I did email Union PR.
254 right now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for joining us this late at night. Holy shit. It's nearly midnight. No straight answer from Union PR just yet. I think they're trying to figure out. I asked about streaming for the Atlas game on June 7th. No yes or no yet. I can't imagine that they would announce streaming plans at the same time they're trying to sell tickets, which I totally understand.
Yep.
But I would be very disappointed if there's no streaming plans in mind for a friendly like that, even if it's something as rudimentary as an iPhone on a swivel on the second level of the stadium. So I don't know, neither here or there. But yeah, I think they'll be fine. Just everybody needs to remain healthy. And shout out Frankie Westfield. He needs to keep that run going. He needs to make that World Cup in September, which would run into the playoffs. But nonetheless, to show up to a World Cup, even at the youth level, that's massive. So hopefully he's able to cut that roster.
Definitely. Kyle and Jillian, any final thoughts on this club's performance this season entering the break? And then also just if you guys have anything to plug too, please share away.
Yeah, well, lots of reasons to be Posidelphia right now. And I think you go into this international break with a lot of positivity, a lot of belief. The team has belief. It's something that we didn't see last year. This team really does believe in each other. And clearly Bradley is doing a good job with the players. They really are buying into what he's doing. And I think, as long as there aren't all kinds of injuries or anything, they come out with a little bit of rest and they can keep that going. I think they've done phenomenal on the road. So if they can keep that going as well and pick up some points in June, that'll be huge.
Sorry, I'm watching the Club World Cup.
Yeah.
And Belonga just took a knock and he is limping really, really bad. It's nothing. But anyway, no, I mean, like we talked about earlier, to get those points after I said 11. And funny thought on my season prediction on our show, I said in this next block of 5, starting with Toronto, that the Union would have 4 points. They're already at 4 points. So, again, it just shows to where this club is performing going into expectations on this year. So, yeah, thrilled. Continue. Really curious to see how they do against the Chicagos, the Columbuses, the Nashvilles, those games coming up, how they perform on the road. But
yeah, need a little payback against Nashville, to be honest.
Kyle will be live streaming the YouTube. But no, I think the Union are in a good place right now, and that's a good thing to see for all of us. And we'll see what the summer months bring.
Yeah, and not gonna lie, I'm actually kind of excited for the Atlas game because I know we're probably gonna see some of the U2 guys and see some different guys play. Well, Rick's going to be on national team duty too. So
Mike Sheridan.
It's
probably
Zemla. Yeah. So
They need to give Semla a platform to maybe find a different club. With all due respect to him, he might need a good Atlas performance. One of the few that actually needs a good Atlas performance.
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny you guys are talking about the up ahead, this upcoming schedule, this break. So the Philadelphia Union are hosting Charlotte on June 14th. Oh, it's a Saturday, 7:30 p.m. And then they go Chicago on the 25th, Columbus on the 29th, Wednesday and Sunday, and then next Saturday on July 5th in Nashville. So they have 3 road matches before they then have that back-to-back homestand against the Red Bulls, both in the Open Cup quarterfinals and just regular MLS play. And then they end that home stretch against CF Montreal. So really, I mean, kind of just piggyback on the 3 of you have talked about and all this stuff. It's Michael Uwell needs to get healthy. I think one of the unsung players this season so far, the unsung heroes this season has been Michael Uwell. I think he's played well throughout the year. I think we've seen how unappreciated he is overall as a player. And I think if you saw his second goal against Miami when he's running through the box and just goes across 2 defenders, basically untouched, and somehow gets that ball to Baribo, you see how much Michael Ua is really a valuable part of this team. So I want to see him get healthy again, see everybody coming back off their international breaks healthy. And then it's actually, I know we talk about May and that being a tough stretch, but these 3 road games before the Open Cup quarterfinals, that's a tough. You could easily lose all 3 of those games. I mean, I don't, and that's no disrespect against the Union. That's just simply the places you're going to, the opponent you're facing. I mean, even Chicago. I know they're not the best team, but we've seen them struggle against Chicago plenty of times. So I'm excited for this club. I mean, as I texted you guys, I've had wedding obligations quite literally all weekend, and I was at this brewery with this wedding party I was at. They were all kind of having like this bachelor party day 2, and I had my phone up. I was like, I'm watching the game. I'm not missing this guy. Sorry, like the Union right now are fun to watch again. They're must-watch TV for me, and I just don't think we had that last year. So I think if you're looking at a final thought entering this break, it's the club finally feels like it's back into where it should be. The expectations we had, even going back to 2019 when you beat Red Bull at home, going to the 2020 season when you get the Supporter Shield. This is the expectations we have for this club. Every year they should be in a top 4 or 5 position in the playoffs. They should be competing for a cup every single year. And for the first time, what feels like a year and a half, it seems like we're kind of back on that track. So again, Philadelphia Union end the month of May with a 0-0 draw against FC Dallas. Again, we kind of wish we would have pulled the win there, but it is what it is. This is Across the Pitch, entry now midnight. I appreciate all of you joining us tonight. If you want to follow us, it's AAT Sports Network on Facebook and YouTube. Please subscribe, like, so you never miss a show. Also, Father's Day is right around the corner. If you want to get any of our merchandise, we have cups, mugs, shirts, the whole 9. Send us a DM for any of the gear. Very comfortable, fairly affordable as well. Besides that, Kyle, Jillian, thanks for joining us tonight. Dave, go get some breakfast or something, brother. Like, go eat some pancakes.
Go grill some tomatoes with your toast and beans and bangers.
And Jose, sir, good night to you as well. Have a great night, everybody. Go Union.
DOOP.